Trey, in the meantime here, we do want to stay with this story. We want to bring in some legal analysis, but we also want to let you watch the family members represented by their attorneys make the case for Eric and Lyle Menendez to be freed after all of these years here. We do have a live picture over what looks to be kind of a gray, gloomy, cloudy Santa Monica Pier. But what we want to do right now, we want to bring into the conversation our friend, legal analyst, Tre Lovell. He joins me. Tre, good to see you again. Man, since you and I last spoke, what was that now, 2 Fridays ago, this story is really moving along quite rapidly here. I just want to make out what you think is going to happen. You heard from some of these family members today. You heard from Mark Garagos today. Do they have a case, or are they being overly optimistic? Are they being realistic when they say, we want them out by Thanksgiving?
Well, I think you're right. There's great momentum that's happening on this, every day, certainly every week that goes by. And the case is getting stronger. From the legal side of it, they are hitting all the elements for resentencing. The redemptive qualities, the fact that they've been model inmates, what they've done post-conviction, the fact that they've served 35 years, low rate of recidivism. All that stuff is hitting most of the elements required for resentencing. But then there's also this public sentiment. This big social media push with celebrities, with TikTok groups and things like that, really educating the public on why they should be released, more favor of it. And so it's going to be a really compelling argument. I think Gascon's going to go along with it eventually. And then the judge is going to be faced with, the legal arguments and some social pressure to release them.
So, Trey, I want to talk about this habeas petition asking the court to review this new evidence. And just full disclosure for the viewers, I recently watched the Netflix documentary on this over the weekend here, and I was struck by the glaring differences between the first trial that ended in a mistrial and the second trial, of course, that ended with a conviction here. So much was left out of that second trial here. And so a petition to Gascon to make some of these resentencing recommendations, is it only up to Gascon or is it up to a judge? Who are the ultimate arbiters of whether this gets anywhere?
Yeah, so there's really two different processes that are going on. There's the writ of habeas corpus, and what that means is there's been evidence that's been discovered after the trial that had been known and admitted at the trial may have made a difference in what the jury did. And that references the letter that Eric Menendez wrote to his cousin about 8 months before the murder, citing the sexual violence and the fear. And then also a declaration from one of the A Menudo performers that he also was molested by the dad. So those two elements constitute new evidence, and they're trying to get a retrial on that. But there's a whole separate other track called resentencing. And what that means is California has recent legislation that says anybody incarcerated or the district attorney can move to have a conviction resentenced based on what's happened after the conviction. So there's really two separate things. And the district attorney is considering the resentencing petition and whether or not he's going to go along with it. If he does go along with it, it's going to be up to the judge.
Okay. And you and I have talked about this before. I mean, this is entirely specific to statutes on the books in California. That DA can just come out and say, we're looking at this again, this very high profile case, right? Do I have that right? I mean, you couldn't do this if you were in another jurisdiction in another state, or could you?
No, you're right. I mean, California is very specific. They have this resentencing legislation. As a matter of fact, Gascon, the DA's office, has done it over 300 times, over 300 cases. They sought to be resentenced under this new statute. So any criminal defendant can do it, and the district attorney can do it. But it's pivotal. If the district attorney opposes it, it's got a tougher chance of being successful. If the district attorney agrees with it, then the court is facing two unopposed sides asking for the same thing.
So, Trey, I'm going to ask you this too. Are we hearing any of those opposing voices right now? I'm not. Are you?
I'm not. And there certainly are some. I think there's one family member that believed that it was greed that may have have either caused them to kill the parents, and or they had ousted them out of the will. But that's the only thing that I've heard. There's been nothing but momentum in one direction from the
Right.
family, from that press conference today, and from celebrities and things like that, and certainly the attorneys. So it's been very, very one-sided.
So I want to just cite from the documentary that I recently viewed over the weekend here, and the initial prosecutor was interviewed at length there in that documentary, and they kept saying that sexual abuse is not a legal defense for murder, and obviously it goes without saying that the conception and nature of sexual abuse against men has really come a long way in 35 plus years here. But at the time, it was nowhere near where it is now. Can you make that argument again if you're opposed to this, that sexual abuse is not a legal defense for murder?
Well, I mean, I think you're right. You know, back in the 90s, there was a different belief in terms of how people looked at sexual abuse. And often the battered woman syndrome was often used, to take away intent when a woman would kill a husband because of the battered woman syndrome. And they said that sexual abuse of men did not qualify under that. I think they even said it, as a matter of law. That's not the case now. Sexual abuse is not only a valid defense to intent, but people are more sensitive to it. So it's two completely different times. But I think the argument is if you're opposing them getting released, is like, listen, you can't apply today's standards to the conviction back then. If you did, then every single conviction could be looked at. And that's ridiculous. You have to apply it at the times and whether or not at the time it was accurate.
Yeah. Trey, so many of us here in the newsroom even, we're just asking ourselves, why now? Mark Geragos cited this today at the press conference. They have exhausted the appeals process here. So why are they so confident it's going to work this time around? Why now? I don't think anyone's been able to answer that unless it is because of the renewed attention from the Netflix series here. But I don't want to just attribute it all to that, do we?
No, I think it's been a multitude of things. I think within the last 5 or 6 years, certainly, some people have not forgotten about the convictions and them being in prison and have wanted to get them out. And then I think a couple of documentaries, the most recent one, but also some previous documentaries about the Menendez brothers have also kind of resurfaced the issue. And then I think, once the attorneys got involved and filed that petition for habeas corpus about a year and a half ago, that really kind of pushed the ball. And so that was lingering for a while. And then eventually they came around and they sought to have resentencing. Then you had the Netflix documentary. Now you have the social media push behind the documentary. It's kind of a perfect storm of events. So I don't think it's just exclusively the documentary. I think it's been a kind of a snowball effect coming down the hill. And within the last 5 or 6 years, we've really kind of got to the precipice of it.
But there is a sense that the momentum works in their favor. I mean, can you give us, I know we don't like to make predictions here because we want to stay to what we know, but you're an experienced attorney. You know how these things work, Trey. If you were Eric and Lyle Menendez right now, would you be confident?
I would be. I would be confident. And the reason is this. You're right. These are tough. There's no question they murdered their parents viciously. But, we're at a new time and era now. And we've got a very anti-incarceration district attorney. We've got a big social media push. We've got, additional insights into the sexual abuse that they actually were suffering, that are very real. And people are more affected by that now than before. And there's a lot of social sentiment. And I think the fact that these guys have turned out to really be redemptive, they turned out to have been rehabilitated. Graduating from college, starting these mentoring programs, these different causes. I mean, the question is, are they better, situated to be out of prison or in prison? And a lot of people think it's out of prison. So I think it's a multitude of factors that kind of coming together. I think it's a good shot they have.
All right, Tre Lovell, we're going to have to leave it at that. Trey, I can't thank you enough. I always appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Great. Nice seeing you.